Hi, everyone. The board has just commenced the reorganizational meeting, and we will now transition to the business agenda. We actually are coming back from executive, though, and no actions were taken, right?
Yeah, so let's return to
So we're going to return to public session. May I have a first? Kate? May I have a second? Heather? All in favor? Thank you. May I have a motion to open the business meeting? Lisa? May I have a second? Bruce? All in favor? Please rise. Oh, we did the Pledge of Allegiance already, right? Sorry, we've had like 4 meetings already this evening. So welcome to this portion of the evening. We've been here since 5:30. Okay, it's nice to see you all. All right, so now as president of the board, here is my report. I'm going to read it off my phone, and the irony is not lost on me given the topic of this evening. This was the best I could do today. Okay. It's a lot of driving in the summer, everyone, right? Yeah. All right. Good evening, everyone. First, I would like to officially recognize Mr. Joe Monastero, our superintendent, on his first official board meeting. We would also like to take a moment to recognize Mr. Marcatelliente, our newest trustee. And Ms. Heather Young, who's returning for a second term and a second year as vice president. We have a lot to celebrate tonight and in the upcoming school year. We started off this summer with an amazing celebratory parade through Cold Spring Harbor, celebrating both our boys and girls lacrosse teams on their state championships. Mr. Monastero is going to speak about this in his remarks further, but if you were not able to attend, I know there's some great videos on social media that are well worth a watch. We're going to actually kick off this school year with another wonderful full community celebration at homecoming. We will be hosting the Remembrance Bowl this year. This is a really remarkable event that started last year at Locust Valley. We were fortunate enough to share in the experience as both their opponents and as their guests last year. We are very excited to be the hosts of the event this year, and there will be a lot more information coming on the event in the weeks leading up to the event, and actually sooner than that. We had a wonderful committee meeting on Monday, yesterday, and the event is being chaired by Kate Delacarpini. Thank you. It's all volunteers. We'll be calling lots of you for your help as well. And thank you also to Mr. Bongino and to the Booster Club and to everyone else who has been integral in getting this event off the ground. Another shout out here to Mr. Monastero, who's been doing a lot of work. Just last week, I think he did 3 separate jobs in his first week as superintendent. He was still his former position, he was HR, and he was the new superintendent. So he had a busy first 5 days. He's going to update you this evening on some of the hiring he has done, and we will cover that in this agenda as well. So thank you, Mr. Monastero, for doing 3 jobs in your first week as superintendent. We won't do that to you again. Thank you. Later this month, the board will be having its annual retreat, and this is where we work on board and district goals to be presented at the beginning of the school year. We are a relatively young board still, and we're a really good team. So we look forward to continuing to serve our community with our students at the front of our mind, always throughout the upcoming school year. And now I will turn this meeting over to Mr. Monastero.
Thank you, Alex. Good evening and welcome to the first regular meeting of the Board of Education of Cold Spring Harbor Central School District for the 24-25 school year. First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out from their busy time to attend this meeting. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Mark Italiente to the Board of Education, and I'm excited to work with Mark and the rest of the board in the years to come. The 23-24 school year ended with multiple graduations, moving up ceremonies, and celebrations. These honor the hard work of our students and staff throughout the year. These events also celebrated our parents, whose support of our students in the classroom, music halls, art rooms, athletic fields, and many other ways were evident. Thank you. Later in the school year, we'll have a formal presentation on student achievement, in which will include New York State Regents, AP exams, and the 3 through 8 state assessments. I do want to share a few points of pride in the data we have at this point in time. For Regents, our overall mastery rate was 85.78% on all Regents exams taken. Last year, we had a mastery rate of 85.24, so a little improvement. And just to note, mastery means scoring over 85 on the exams. So our rate was mastery itself, over 85%. With AP exam, we had 78% of our students score 3 or better on an exam this year. This is up from 2023 school year, in which we had 76% scored a 3 or better. We did this with 13 fewer students taking exams and 13 fewer students and 53 more exams taken this year. I'm very proud of our students and staff for this achievement. Later this week, we'll hold our administrative retreat, during which we'll work with Dr. Carol Dweck's research on the growth mindset and the power of our words when communicating with staff, students, parents, and everyone we encounter. We'll also be setting goals for the year, and believe me, a lot more. We also have many projects in play this summer, and here's just a list of the few things. At Goose Hill Primary, new water wells, generator work, large area AC completion, and exterior fascia. God bless you. At Westside, new kitchen, completely revamped, including the lunchroom. At Lloyd Harbor, the Little Theater renovation, bathroom upgrades. At the junior senior high school, lighting, HVAC work, new sound system, which includes mics and speakers in the pack, with new flooring and safety lighting included. We're also replacing all the network switches across the district this summer, along with the recent completion of upgrades and expansion of Wi-Fi at the fields at the junior senior high school. The tech guy kind of had to throw that in there. We're also doing all this we just mentioned, plus regular summer cleaning, where every room is emptied for a deep cleaning, waxing the floors, then put back together. I walked through the buildings these past few days, and they look completely foreign than they did just a few days ago. They are filled with workers and equipment, but rest assured, they will be ready for the start of school year. Later tonight, Mr. Dan Busky, the high school principal, will present an overview of the new cell phone procedures for students. Note that he and his team are working on the fine points of the procedures for the junior senior high school and to have the best launch of this at the start of the school year. Mr. Dan Busky and his school improvement team discussed cell phones and social media procedures during the year. Tonight, along with the first read of the student and personal electronic device policy, we're moving forward with a plan to protect our students and help them be present and concentrate more effectively at school. These are many facets of the plan, and Mr. Nimbusky will fill us in later. I also want to thank the Sports Booster, especially Kim Tessa and Joe Larson, for their work on organizing the lacrosse state championship parade for our boys and girls teams. That took place about 2 weeks ago. It was a wonderful celebration of our student athletes, and at my estimation, at least 500 people attended this right down Main Street, Cold Spring Harbor. We also have on the agenda staff members for hire, Dr. Candace Brody, who is here tonight, for Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Dr. Rihanna Fulton, Executive Director of Instructional Administrative Technology, and James Granieri, who's right here, our music chair and teacher. With many more teachers and aides and teaching assistants to come over the summer, we have lots of interviews and screenings going on every single day to hire these people. It has been a very busy start of the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are actually going to move discussion items, Roman numeral 15, now here before committee reports. So we have 2 items for discussion. The first is mixed competition sports. Would anyone like to kick off our discussion?
So I guess I can kick it off. The Board of Regents is proposing a mixed sports bylaw where boys and girls can play together in sports. So we're asking, we're going to advocate as a board. I hope, to write a letter to Roger Tillis, the Board of Regents, that we are opposed to this. We feel that it's not safe for the girls, it takes away a lot of opportunities, a lot of accolades, a lot of scholarships, but most of all, the safety of it. So we're gonna write a letter advocating, opposing, asking that we don't want that.
Right. We are going to, they're trying to eliminate the adverse effect clause, right? So we're opposing that. That they're
We're-
eliminating the adverse effect clause and allowing all
Yes,
boys.
that's correct.
All boys,
All
any
boys,
boys,
all
right,
any
boys to
boys,
play
yeah.
on any girl's
Right,
sport.
even if it causes an issue.
What do you
Even
mean
if
by
they're,
issue?
I guess.
Regardless
I
of
just-
gender identity.
Yeah, I guess I just want to be
Right.
clear that what they are advocating, what they want to do is remove the adverse effect clause, and we want to keep that. Like, we don't want, like, I'm assuming there would be some situations where, and this could be a discussion in our resolution, when we discuss the resolutions, in my opinion, there could be situations where a boy can play on a biological male could play on a traditionally female team, as long as it doesn't cause any adverse effects, removal of scholarships, danger to the girls, things like that.
Well, I guess we could go back and forth on this. I'd like to know what sport a male is not going to beat a woman.
I mean, it could,
Maybe, I don't know. What sport do we have?
it could be a very short male playing volleyball. I don't know. But, I mean, I feel like there could be to say.
I don't think short really has to do with
No boys
it.
at all could play, if a boy who is, maybe not very muscular, not, where it really wouldn't cause
I don't
an
think that's what
adverse
we're saying.
effect.
We're saying that we're just opposed to the proposed amendment there of section, I could go through all the numbers, basically the regulations
It's here.
that require, there's right now Title IX. So this is actually going against Title IX. Title
Yeah.
IX stands right now. This goes against Title IX, all things that women have fought for. But I understand what you're trying to say, but there is unintended consequences, right, to boys playing with the girls.
We want to
And-
preserve that the boys are
Right.
not going to displace any girls from a team.
100%.
That is the goal. For
100%.
female athletes
Right.
still have first rights to the female teams, that it's not if a boy gets cut from basketball, he can go try out for the girls' team and take a spot from
Right.
that
Yes.
is the purpose
Right.
of this letter. It's not to
And-
say
Right, okay,
that we
yes.
don't want boys playing on a girls' team. And I don't think Mr. Bongino, hi. Field hockey, is there anything else that boys don't have a equal
Flag football.
sport for flag, but they have football, but,
What about
and girls don't have football.
We need Mike to come.
Come to
What-
the mic
what
so
do
we
you
can
mean
hear
by-
you. Thank you,
Where's-
thank you.
We're starting a flag football?
Yeah.
For girls.
For girls, yeah.
In all of our conversations as athletic directors, flag football is the biggest concern, that because it's in a separate season, that boys would want to play that sport. So many school districts are writing these letters that they would like the.
So that it's protecting the flag football opportunity
We are
for women.
protect-
And there's flag football leagues now available and professional flag football starting for women. So it would take opportunities away from women.
Correct.
Yeah.
The words you used are accurate. We do not, an adverse effect is what we want
Right.
to keep. We do not want them to take this, it will hurt female sports if the wording doesn't change in the document.
Right. So, and there's a coalition of schools, right, that school boards, and And everyone, not everyone, but a majority, I would say, of the schools in the coalition seem to be in agreement of sending these letters to protect women's sports, right?
And
So,
Alex,
yeah.
can I
That-
interrupt
that
for a
is
second?
correct.
The New York State Athletic Administrators Association, and there's also a letter from the New York State Public High School Athletic Association
Yes.
that is also
They're,
against this
they're also, right, in support of keeping girls' sports
for girls.
for girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Sec-
that's actually the
section-
letter I'm looking at right now,
Section
is
8
the New York
athletics.
State Athletic Administrators Association.
Section 8 Athletics,
Yeah.
the executive director has a letter written on his behalf, along with even the superintendent's board of Section 8 Athletics. The New York State Public High School Athletic Association also, Dr. Robert Zayas also has a letter written into the State Ed Department. And on July 29th, 30th, and 31st, I will actually be at the State Executive Committee meeting with the Central Committee, and this is number one on the agenda for conversation throughout the state of New York.
Right, thank you.
Yeah,
And
just to be clear, I agree with
Yes.
this letter. I just want to make sure that,
Yeah,
know,
no, thank
we
you for,
use,
you
like,
cl-
the
you clarified it,
wording
you clarified it in
that-
a good way. Yes, no, I
Yeah,
thought that was helpful.
I agree with these
Okay.
letters, and I
Yes.
think we should certainly send the letters.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and Heather has been our advocacy letter writer, and Heather, can put together a letter for us based on,
Sure, so I'll piggyback off of these letters that we're discussing. I'll put something together and I'll send it around to the board for input. And then I believe the date is, I'm sorry, is it July 21st that the letters need
Yeah.
to be in by?
And I think we usually post it on the website.
yeah,
too.
it will be
So
posted on the
once
website for
it's
everyone to read, too.
Ready.
Yes, and
Okay.
and then community
thank you.
members can also
course.
typically send in letters
Yeah,
as
you're
well when the
welcome to send
information is
letters as
put
well.
on the website.
Can I ask Mr. Bongino a question?
Of course.
Okay. I don't know if this actually
Ask it into your microphone,
I
though,
don't
because
know if
otherwise
this
they won't hear it on the
actually-
recording.
Very good. I don't know if this actually happens or not, because I haven't seen it, but do boys and girls wrestle sometimes in high school or junior
Yeah.
high?
In Cold Spring Harbor, the answer at this moment in time is no. But yes, it does happen.
Girls can-
Girls can wrestle girls wrestling is a now sanctioned sport in New York State. Schools have it. You must have a minimum of 6 wrestlers. If you do not, they may wrestle on the boys' team. We here currently, I haven't been asked that question, but yes,
Girls
it
have
does.
wrestled in New York State for a really long time. I
Yes,
was
they
the
have.
wrestling team manager in
So-
high school, fun fact. And one of my friends who was the manager with me ended up joining the team. She was awesome.
Okay,
Yeah.
so assuming that's working, right, would this or your advocacy or our advocacy in any way interfere with that? Because if it's working, we want to leave that, right? We're just trying to prevent other areas?
That's correct.
Right.
You really kind of want to keep the status quo. It's working.
Good.
I have absolutely no problem with girls, females wrestling on the boys' team or developing the whole team. I would love to one day come to you and say, hey, I got 12 girls. Could we start a team? But that would be a wonderful thing. We want to keep the status quo. The reverse would have an adverse effect on our girls, female sports.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So are we all then comfortable? We don't have to actually vote on this, right?
Right.
No, just everyone's comfortable. Any other discussion on that item? Okay. So moving forward, we also have NISBA proposed resolutions. I believe they are in the agenda packet. Is that right? They're in the folders. Yep. Do we want to take them one by one for discussion?
Very quickly.
Yeah.
That's useful. Thank
Okay. Okay. Should I continue? Okay. So the first,
I don't know if you have to vote or just, I'm not sure.
I-
Do they have to vote on the NISBA resolutions, which ones they're supporting and which ones they're not supporting? They want to discuss them. They can. And
NISBA is the New York State School Board Association, and they have resolutions that boards actually can vote on. And whether or not the board, what, excuse me?
Drives their
It drives their lobbying at the state level. So there are 7 that we have for discussion this evening. The first is that the New York State School Board Association shall advocate for a cap on BOCES budget increases. The rationale is that school districts are limited to a 2% tax levy cap. They are under great pressure to meet the demands on their budgets from mandated expenses. One of them, the BOCES administration fee. The BOCES should be subject to a cap on their budget, as their member districts are. So is everyone in agreement that BOCES should have a cap on their budget? And we, yes, okay. Do we need to vote
Yes.
officially?
No.
No.
I think
Okay.
you're just sending a rep to, and consensus.
Consensus, okay, yes,
Yeah, you're going to send a
Okay,
voting member to vote
okay.
on these.
okay.
So do we have to go through each one, though?
Yes, we should
We
go
do,
through.
right?
As long as you
Yeah.
have a consensus, I don't think you need to vote on each resolution separately.
Okay, so there's some of them are,
Yeah.
okay, so some of them may warrant a little bit of discussion, so
Yeah.
I would just hate to just take it as a
So
like,
I'm just gonna mark off the ones that we're saying.
that would be great, thank you, Kate. Okay, so number 2, resolve that the New York School Board Association shall advocate for an upstate foundation aid formula and the new formula be voted on by the New York State legislator and through regulatory actions of NYSED. Rationale, New York State is a vast state and each region has its own set of challenges and circumstances. Our elected officials should be the ones to determine aid formula without input from other constituents. Sorry, with input, thank you, from their constituents. So this is more local control than over the aid formula. Is everyone comfortable with advocating for more local as opposed to state control over funding for schools? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. You know, I'm a big proponent of that. Okay. Resolved that New York State School Board Association shall advocate for the repeal of the law that removed religious moral exemption to immunization. Rationale, all medical interventions have side effects and the government should not force families to accept the risk that they do not believe is in the best interest of their child in order to receive an education. These decisions are best left to parents in consultation with their family physician.
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
No. No.
Yeah, no,
I'm okay with it.
you're okay with it?
One more time. I don't have it.
All resolved that the New York State School Board Association shall advocate for the repeal of the law that removed the religious and moral exemption to immunization. Rationale, all medical interventions have side effects and the government should not force families to accept a risk that they do not believe is in the best interest of their child in order to receive an education. These decisions are best left to the parents in consultation with their family physician.
Yeah.
You're okay with it? I have very mixed feelings on it, but I'm in the minority here. So I see both sides. I did see a number of families who were excluded from school, in independent schools even in New York City, because of their religious beliefs over the last few years. And it was really, that was a very hard thing to see, but I also like that there's like no measles in the world. So I'm very conflicted on it, but I think
We're in the
we're in the
anyway.
minority, so, all right. Number 4. Oh, no, sorry. I also left out rationale number 2, which was medical exemptions are not a reliable counter as physicians are routinely discouraged from writing exemptions. So that was rationale number 2 on that one. Is everyone still comfortable with? Yeah, okay. Number 4, resolve that New York State School Board Association shall advocate for local control of education administration to the county executive or school board where it is appropriate. Rationale, New York State is vast with 62 counties. Each area of the state has differing needs and challenges. New York City's mayor is given the authority to manage New York City schools. All counties throughout the state should be afforded the same opportunity. Local government is the most responsive and informed on issues affecting their community. Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that seems good, okay. Resolve that New York State School Board Association shall oppose any legislation or New York State ed regulation mandating comprehensive K-12 gender and sexual education. Rationale, recent legislative actions have been moving towards mandating sexual and gender education, taking curriculum decisions away from boards of education and undermines their authority and disenfranchises the voters of school districts. We also note that the last 2 years have seen increasing support for this resolution as school boards are willing to voice their opposition. For clarification, any school district that wants to enact comprehensive K-12 gender and sexual education would be free to do so. This is an opposition only to the mandate that districts adopt one. So, and these were written not by our school board, just to be clear, but I'm comfortable with this just because it allows us still the ability to adopt our own curriculum, which I think is what I as an educator, prefer to doing what was mandated by the state. I think we typically can do a even better job than
Right.
what
It
the
allows
state
us to-
mandates
To do what's
to
necessary
us.
for Cold Spring Harbor.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Resolved that New York State School Board Association shall oppose any legislation of New York State ed regulation that would allow biological males to participate in female athletics. This is the conversation we just had. Rationale, the Board of Regents has introduced amendments to mixed sports competition, eliminating the adverse effect clause, which allows school districts to deny any biological males to try out for biological female sports if there would be an adverse effect to the biological female participation and or opportunity. If the regulation takes effect in September 2024 as planned, we need to advocate for the appeal of this regulation. So that's the letter we just
Right,
agreed to write.
right. I personally think this language is just a little harsh.
Okay, so
I
let's
think,
look at it.
Like, resolve that the New York State Boards Association shall oppose any legislation that would allow biological males to participate in biological female athletics. I'm in favor of, if they go through with this regulation, I am in favor of repealing it, but, or advocating to repeal it, but I think that it's I think it's a little too restrictive to say that any biological male cannot participate in any biological female athletics. That's my opinion. I think there might be circumstances where there wouldn't be an adverse effect.
Are you reading it, because I was reading it only with the eliminating the, only if it eliminates the adverse effect. Are you seeing it differently? Can you just show me which?
They want to eliminate
So we
the
could-
adverse effect clause.
Right.
That's the rationale for saying that, like that, and the adverse effect clause would be if it has an adverse effect on those females.
Right.
If it takes
Right.
away spots, if it takes away.
But you're saying that the way it's saying right now, the resolve that New York State School Board Association shall oppose any legislation. So what we could say then, if we were more comfortable with it, is oppose any legislation or New York State ed regulation that will allow biological males to participate in biological female athletics that would eliminate the adverse effect clause. Would that be better?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with
Yeah,
that.
I think that that's a good
But
edit
again, that's
to
me.
it. Is everyone comfortable with
I'm
that?
fine with that. What do you think, Bruce?
Are you just voting on this wording though?
I mean, it kind of doesn't really, I think,
We're allowed to
make
introduce our own
sense,
wording,
but-
yeah.
I don't know. I just felt like
think, aren't
the wording was a little too restrictive.
Are we allowed to
It's like we were
introduce
gonna do, anytime they said.
Are we allowed to change the wording on
Yeah.
this?
No. these
No,
are the-
this
these
is
are
the wording. These are the resolutions.
that are gonna be
Okay.
before the body,
Okay,
and there'll be
okay.
discussion about each of them.
Yes,
as
we
Okay,
can change
so-
the language.
Yeah, I don't think
She's wrong.
the resolution matches the rationale.
If you're asking me to explain school boards, that's a much harder.
Well, the
Right, this is
rationale is that
actually
the
from
adverse
Ms.
effect clause is what caused this whole,
No,
right?
it's the
That's-
removal of the adverse.
That's what I'm
effect.
saying.
Right, yeah,
Removal
yeah.
of of the adverse.
I see what Lisa
effect.
says. It's written in a
But-
way that makes it scary to vote against it, which is probably
And that's how I
not by
feel, that,
accident,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I know, but I think they want to keep it the way it is now, like boys don't play with girls now,
No,
right?
actually, I don't think that's it, because today, under certain circumstances, boys can participate on girls' teams, so long as that adverse impact is not felt in that issue.
Like
So
if
for
there's not
example-
other girls to
for
fill out the
example, if you
team.
have a small
Yeah,
young man who wants to play in some team sports, and field hockey is one he chooses, and there is no male hockey team or field hockey
Mike.
team. Mike, you can explain this, but I know that they have allowed,
So
because there's no.
this goes back many years to an individual in Southampton School District who wanted to play field hockey. In the middle school, they allowed it. The minute he matured and reached his maturation, they denied him playing field hockey. When you have both sports offered for both male and female athletes, they should play in their proper biological area because it's offered. Field hockey is not offered for boys. Gymnastics is not offered for boys. The adverse effect piece is very key because who's making that judgment on how that biological male is not adversely affecting a female athlete, when by natural biological fact, it's the nature of the body that they are faster, bigger, and stronger. So we would need the school doctor involved in those components and all of the things if there were other matters. But for me, the way the wording is it's somewhat keeping it the same because we offer soccer, boys and girls. Boys play on the boys' team, girls play on the girls' team. So we're only really faced with wrestling, field hockey, and where this got very delicate in the athletic world was when flag football was brought into play. That is where this all stemmed from, because technically flag football in the spring, there is nothing for, the boys don't play that. So now you can take any male, the way the legislation's being written, and say, I want to be the quarterback and play on that girl's team, and we would have no way of saying no if this passes. That's truly what it's trying to stop. That's basically
okay,
where
and we
it's at.
just added that to give girls that opportunity. The other thing, Mike, that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're in 7th or 8th grade and you want to play, or 8th grade, let's say, and you want to play on a varsity sport that's a very physically, a sport that has physical contact, the school doctor has to be involved with that as well. Is that right?
Yeah,
That's my understanding, that you have to have special permission from a physician
That is correct.
to do that. Okay.
That is
So even if you're a boy and it's a boys' team, or a girl and it's a girls' team. Yeah.
To
Okay.
move up to the high school, they have to pass what's called the APP,
Right.
Advanced
Yes.
Placement
And
Process.
how often,
Used to be selection class.
It's just called Advanced Placement Process now.
and Mike, how often does that come to fruition?
Very infrequently here for our contact sports.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So how do we feel about then moving forward with this? Mark?
Put me on the spot.
Sorry, I'm just going around get used to it. We go around. That's usually where I start. I should start over here sometimes.
Yeah.
Lisa already has weighed in a bit, though.
I can take the.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Heather, go.
All right, so I'm okay with it because I would say yes, because they do provide their rationale for their statement, so that indicates the purpose behind what they're stating, and I think we've all agreed that we would like to eliminate that, we're concerned about that elimination of the adverse effect clause. So for that reason, I think yes.
I have another point of inquiry for Mr. Bongino. Sorry, Mike, can I ask you one more thing? So if it says, that it's resolved that New York State School Board Association opposes any legislation that allows biological males, does that then not allow for a school district to make an exception at any point then on their own? Do you know, like that boy in Southampton who wanted to play field hockey?
It was denied,
It was denied.
correct.
Okay.
Soon as it was an adverse effect.
Yeah.
When it was
But if it's not adverse effect, are schools still able to?
Yeah, it's going to go through many steps to
Okay.
get that approval.
Mike, how does it work when it's on the opposing team? So we may not have that rule, but then another team allows a male to participate, and we're competing against that
If
team.
Good question.
That's a great question. This is new area for all of us. I don't have the answer to that at this time. My guess is we would have to play.
Yeah.
If it's legislation that's approved,
beginning
we'd
of
have to
Yes.
play.
It's the slippery slope.
Okay. So Bruce, how do you feel about this? You're good moving forward with it?
Yes, I'm good with it, yes.
Kate, you're good. Mark?
Yes.
Yes. Heather, you're good. Lisa? You wish it
Wording
was
makes
worded,
you
I know,
uncomfortable?
me too, a little bit.
But,
But I also, the
with
rationale,
the
I support.
rationale.
Okay, thank you. Last one. Resolve that the New York State School Board Association shall oppose any legislation or New York State Ed regulation that would mandate any recommendations from the Blue Ribbon Commission, including mandating the culturally responsive sustaining education framework. Rationale, school boards must be allowed autonomy and local control over curriculum in our schools. Any mandate from the state education regarding content to be taught in our schools would violate local control and just disenfranchises the voters in the school district. So, right, so currently school boards oversee curriculum. This would allow for the state to then mandate curriculum requirements outside of really even academics for the purposes of graduation, right?
And the way it's graded.
And the way it's graded. And our grading right now stands with the teachers in the building level principals, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
I'm correct when I say that, and because they want to create their rubrics.
That's correct.
right?
yeah, so just make sure. So, right, there would be a rubric involved in
So
in
how-
grading that schools would have to follow as well, mandated by the state. So I think that's not something that doesn't seem very Cold Spring Harbor,
No.
right? Is
No.
everyone in agreement?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
back to the local control. issue
Yeah,
I'm in
again.
okay,
agreement.
local
Yes,
control
local
for the
control.
win. All right, thank you, everyone. We may now return to our regularly scheduled program.
Thank you for bringing the
Thank you,
resolutions to our
yes. Kate,
attention.
thank you for attending extra meetings and for really educating yourself on this. It's so
us.
important, and educating
you.
all
You're
of us, and now everyone who came to the meeting tonight as well. Thank you. Quickly, we are going to have, thank you, Bruce, committee reports.
Do you want to do appointments?
Yeah, can we do appointments?
Oh, yes, sorry, yes,
thank-
let's do
thank you.
appointments. Thank you, Lisa. Let me,
You're going to go to page 2, the second bullet.
thank you. We will now move to personnel recommendations of the superintendent. We will take all resignations, appointments, personnel contracts, and personnel and other matters on pages 1 to 12 as a slate. I will be making comments, but first, may I have a first? Lisa, second. Heather, congratulations to our new hires. Oh, I didn't do all in favor. All in favor. All in favor. Congratulations, I jumped ahead. I was so excited. Here with us tonight are Dr. Brody, our new Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. Yay, stand up, Candace. Yay!
I don't know if the other one's, I don't know if Rihanna's here. Is she here?
No, Rihanna's not.
Rihanna's not
Yeah.
here.
Okay, Dr. Fulton is not here this evening. Dr. Fulton is our new Executive Director of Instructional and Administrative Technology. And Mr.
Granieri?
Guarini,
Say again?
Guarini, Mr. Guarini, Wheelahan, it's hard to say also. Our music chair.
Nothing's worse than mine.
Welcome to the Cold Spring Harbor community. And now we will move back to committee
We're going to let Jim go. His family's here. They have
reports.
young
Yes,
kids.
thank
so
you.
much, Jim.
Thank you, congratulations.
And welcome aboard. Thank you so much.
4. You're on the 5th bullet on page 1.
Thanks, Christine.
You're welcome.
Jumping around today.
I know, it's fun. All right. So we'll report on committee work that has occurred since our last board meeting. We will specifically talk about policy committee and their work on policy 5695, student and personal electronic devices. This relates to our cell phone usage with our students.
Okay, the moment you've all been waiting for. The Policy Committee met twice in June to recommend revisions to existing policy number 5695, students and personal electronic devices. After a review of public studies, national news reports, and feedback from administration, teachers, students, and the community, the Policy Committee is recommending tonight that our board adopt a tightening of its current personal electronic device policy, acknowledging that personal electronic devices pose a distraction to the learning environment and can have adverse effects on students and our school community. While our current policy attempts to limit the use of electronic devices in the classrooms, it does not go far enough, in our opinion, to foster a healthy learning environment for our students. In particular, the current policy is difficult to enforce at the building level since it is vague about usage during passing time and lunch periods, where students are often able to use personal electronic devices in a way that does not enrich personal interaction. Therefore, we are recommending a change to the board policy that limits personal electronic device usage in the educational environment. We have asked the building level administration to recommend regulations and procedures that will support this board policy since it will need to be practical in application. Accordingly, all building leaders will continue to have the discretion to make tweaks and changes to his or her building's guidelines to ensure that the best possible learning environment is in place for our students. Mr. Dan Buskey will speak more about this during his presentation, but the expectation is that there will be a complete restriction on personal electronic devices, including smartphones, smart wearables, tablets, and other similar devices for grades K through 11, and grade 12 will have a privilege for use during certain points of the day. Building leaders will have the full support of the Board of Ed in implementing these regulations, and we would like to thank them in advance for the work that will be needed. In addition, we would like to thank the community for their input. We encourage the board to accept the recommendation of the Policy Committee in this matter.
Thank you, Lisa. I do want to add that this one-page policy, we probably spent about 6 hours on in those meetings because we really want to make sure we did it right to protect our children. And I want to thank everybody for participating.
So are we doing a first read of the policy that's,
That is later in the agenda.
oh, it's later on the
You
agenda.
can move
I know
forward
this,
with
we've
the
discussed it.
presentation,
Okay,
which-
so we're going to move forward with Mr. Dambusky's presentation. So Mr. Dambusky, thank you in advance for your presentation on cell phone usage.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you. First and foremost, thank you to the Policy Committee for inviting me into the conversation and the opportunity. Oh, I get the keyboard? Thank you, Mr. Montestero. And giving me the opportunity to share some of the work that we undertook on the SIT Committee. The SIT Committee really adopted two main goals this year. The first goal was the grading practices of including the Regents exam, and the second goal was to review our current cell phone policies. When we had sat down as a SIT Committee, we really focused on some nationally renowned studies and longitudinal studies that have been released in recent months that showed a significant rise in adolescent mental health issues that are directly corresponding to exposure to digital devices and the expansion and rapid expansion of social media. There's no denying there's a negative impact on the critical development of social skills in young people. We have some anecdotal information from our senior high school who have been implementing a digitally disconnected lunch for the last 2 years, and a marked difference in just the behaviors demonstrated during that lunch period as those phones have been removed from the students' hands. The academic impact, there is no shortage of information that talks about the negative impact that the distractibility and the contagion distraction of a student who is off task on a device in a classroom causes for other students around them. One of the things that we did as a SIT committee was we decided that we would put out a survey. We sent out 3 different surveys. We surveyed the parents in the community, we surveyed the students, and we surveyed the staff. I want to focus tonight just a little bit on the results from the parent survey because I think the parent survey speaks volumes. When you looked at the first question of the survey, it asked, how concerned are you about your child's cell phone use and access to cell phones during the school day? And it was a simple scale of extremely concerned, concerned, slightly concerned, or not concerned at all. 51% of our parents said that they were extremely concerned, which which is right in the middle. However, when you take any parent that has any layer of concern, that number is 84.2% of our parents. So 84.2% of our parents have some level of concern over access to cell phones during the school day. The next question was pretty straightforward. Are you in support of a restriction to cell phone access during the school day? An overwhelming majority of the 200+ responses, 87%, said yes, they are in support of restrictions implemented during the school day. I did ask a few questions about some of the concerns that had been raised. Some parents had raised concern about being able to get in touch with their children. How often do you call or text your child during the school day? 57.7% of the respondents said that they would text or call their child 1 to 5 times during the school day. 41% of parents said they do not. How often are the texts or calls urgent? Out of the 200+ responses, 65% of the parents said they are not urgent at all. So the question then was, would you consider calling the main office if you needed to get in touch with your child? And 60% of the parents responded yes, they would. This was all important information as we sat down to really look at our adjustments. And I think it's only fitting, just in recent days, there was another report, this time in Pennsylvania, where you had a situation, and it's being labeled as really the first mass attack against school personnel, where you had an organized effort by 7th and 8th graders to make parody TikTok accounts of educators, teachers, support personnel in the school building where they used racist, homophobic, lewd, and disparaging remarks about those staff members. It literally has been unfolding day by day. I think at the last count, there were 22 fake TikTok accounts that had been made, roughly 25% of the teaching staff of that building. So there's no denying that, right, that developmental stage that children are at, and exposure to some of these devices and the temptations related to some of those devices caused us to have a real hard look at what we are doing here in Cold Spring Harbor. So the proposed restriction for the junior senior high school, and in the language of the policy, you will see that K through 11, there will be no phone access. It will be a bell-to-bell restriction on cell phone use. We will utilize this in the junior senior high school through the Yonder Pouches program. The Yonder Pouches have been utilized. Currently, I think there are 2 school districts on Long Island. There's a couple in upstate New York. I've spoken to a couple principals from schools that have implemented the Yonder Pouches, and just to get some feedback from them. Anecdotally, the Yonder Pouch is a pretty durable pouch that all smart wearables and phones can fit in, and then it is sealed using a very similar style lock that you would find in a clothing store where they put the safety tag on the clothing. It requires a special tool to remove it. Obviously, our goal when we talk about implementation with the Yonder Pouches is reducing distraction of the cell phones, improving student focus, improving engagement, and of course what we're all here for, which is academic performance. We're also very interested in seeing an overall mental and physical health of our students improve, and just from the anecdotal information collected from our junior high school digitally disconnected lunches, I anticipate, while it will be unpopular with students at first, that the long-term effects of it will outweigh any of the negatives. We talk about seniors. Seniors will also utilize the Yonder Pouch. This is an area where we had some great dialogue back and forth with the policy committee, and the truth is there are times where the seniors are going to need to access their phones. If their Naviance accounts are set up and they utilize personal email addresses, their cell phone will be a means for them to be able to access. In the thick of college applications, I would hate to see a school-implemented restriction cause an increased level of anxiety on a student in an already stressful environment. We all know the senior in their fall trimester, fall semester, going through the college application process and making sure that all of their documents are submitted on Naviance, that the common application is completed, their recommendations are uploaded. It is a very stress-inducing environment for them. So an area that we had talked about, and which is an area that is somewhat self-policed. I mean, you don't really often find anybody who's not a senior going into the senior commons. So students have access to the senior commons as a senior privilege during the school day when they have a free period or a lunch period. Certainly during a free period or a lunch period, we would offer seniors the opportunity to have access to their devices as long as they're being used responsibly. And that is the key, right? So we've already talked about shuffling some of our duty assignments in the building to have more supervision over the senior commons to make sure that the devices, if they are being used for what they could be used for, not for anything negative. Certainly, we are an open campus, so seniors leave to go off for lunch. We want them to have access to their devices. That is a safety concern. It's an opportunity for us to be able to communicate with them or for them to communicate with their families should something happen while they're off campus. There are also medical accommodations. We do have students that are diabetic students that utilize their cell phones to track their blood sugar. So certainly we want to make sure that anybody with a documented medical accommodation like that has access to their phone for a safety concern. But the real reason we're taking the approach with somewhat of an easing of the restriction, and that's really all it is an easing of the restriction for 12th graders. It's not carte blanche. They will not have access to it in their classrooms. They will have expected before they leave the commons to have them back in the yonder pouches because we don't want them in their hands in the hallways. We figure that by providing them the opportunity to utilize them in some of this downtime, in some of this lunch period, or in the senior commons, will help them prior to the time where they leave us and they go off to college. When they go to college, there are a lot of colleges where they will be completely dependent upon it. So in easing of that transition and introducing some of that self-management component before they leave us is the theory behind. The yonder pouches in and of themselves, as I said, they are secure storage pouches. They lock. They would have no access to them during the school day. They would have no access to them during passing time. They would have no access to them in the bathrooms. It's an extremely simple procedure. We already have a 5-minute extra first period because we schedule to have announcements as part of our first period. We also have a 9th period at the end of the day. That's 3 minutes longer than the other instructional periods. It's actually designed for if there's afternoon announcements for things like practices that have been canceled or schedule changes that have occurred, that additional 3 minutes. So we're not looking at an overall impact on any instructional time with the implementation of expecting storage of the devices in a yonder pouch during first period and the opportunity to unlock them during 9th period. We will have unlocking devices mounted in some of the main areas. Obviously, at the exit of the building before students leave, they will have the opportunity to unlock their device. We also have the opportunity to obtain handheld unlocking mechanisms that we can distribute to 9th period teachers to aid in that process so it is not a lengthy process. And again, it's a school-wide approach. I think when we see the positives of this, I think we will be able to understand why it was such an important issue and generated such a response. I mean, it was a really, really robust response with lots of information that came back from the surveys, and that was from all of the surveys. As you can imagine, the student survey generated the least enthusiasm over the topic, but I understand that. The truth is, there's studies out there already for schools that have utilized, and this is just some of the information that I obtained through speaking with some of the principals. So, the pilot study that we're talking about, the principal at Newburgh Free Academy, which is a school about halfway up to Albany, Newburgh Free Academy did this as a pilot project, and they have campuses they call them schools within their school, and they did it as a pilot study. They're now rolling it out building-wide. So they are doing this in a high school with over 2,000 students. So it was so successful in their pilot that they've decided. What they noticed is 70% reduction in classroom disruptions related to phone use. They actually noticed a tangible academic benefit of a GPA increase. And then, of course, long-term benefits, while longitudinal data is somewhat hard to come by at this point, it does show signs of improved mental health, improved social engagement, and better overall student well-being. And what we're going to brand this out at the junior senior high school is our Eyes Up campaign. It's a phrase that students hear me say often, eyes up, as they walk in the hallway or they're sitting in the commons. I tell them, eyes up, eyes up. And Eyes Up is going to stand for engaging your educational spaces, unplugged and present. And that is an overall overview of how we plan to support the new policy.
Thank you, Mr. Dambeski. I know a few years ago, I sent you an email after my middle child finished 7th grade here, and you had taught the kids really about notifications and distractions, and I saw a complete difference in just that one child's relationship with his cell phone, which was amazing. So I thank you for this work. I think it's really important. I think everyone's in agreement that the kids should not be on their phones during the school day. I think, does anyone have questions about the presentation? The only question I have, oh, go ahead, Mark, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. So I just went on the phone. Apparently, it's very easy to defeat the magnet on the yonder pouch. So what are the consequences for kids that don't follow the policy? I don't see that here.
So that is some of the fine tune in terms of procedural rollout, but essentially we are providing these, so that would be destruction of school property. So that would fall in our code of conduct under destruction of school property, similar to as if a student took their Chromebook and intentionally ripped the monitor off their Chromebook. The magnets that, and I don't want to say this too loud on a recording, but the magnets you need to actually order in order to trigger that release valve on the yonder pouch, it would be very easy to spot a child who has that in their backpack or pocket, because the minute they walk by a locker, they're going to stick to the locker because it's actually a pretty strong magnet you need to use. The devices in and of themselves, it becomes pretty evident if somebody's tampering with them. The way they're designed is that if somebody tries to cheat the system and be able to access it, that it rips in a certain way so that it's evident just by viewing it if somebody has tampered with it.
Okay, so the policy, the consequences for violation of the policy will be the school destruction?
Destruction of school property.
And what does that entail?
That often entails the parents being responsible for replacing the device. Our Chromebooks, obviously, there's insurance that people take out on it, so it's a little different. But if it's intentional destruction of school property, we have a continuum. We have a progressive discipline policy. So that could, that destruction of school property is very easily something that could result in an out-of-school suspension.
And then how many hours a day would the seniors have access to their phones then under this plan?
It really would be dependent upon their schedules. Some students will have seniors maybe 2 free periods in their school day. So you're talking about, out of a 9-period day, you're talking roughly 80 minutes.
And I want to add, we also, because we knew students were going to have the access off campus, we'd rather have them in the building than sitting in the parking lot or waiting down at the Turkey Lane on their phone what they want to do. So we'd rather have them here. They're safer in our building than anywhere else.
And then 11 and down, no access to their phone, bell to bell.
Correct.
And then we're looking at a school first day start for the program?
That is our goal. We've already been communicating with Yonder to be able to get the materials and have them onboard us. Part of their onboarding process is helping with some of those procedural components. There'll be an FAQ document that's going to be shared with parents regarding the implementation of the Yonder pouch, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. We also will be purchasing, there are 2 different types of pouches. There's one that's called an accommodation pouch, which does not have the magnet lock, but it's got an extremely loud Velcro. So if teachers are bringing their phones into their classroom, they're going to be expected to utilize the Yonder pouch as well. Some teachers might not bring their phones into the room. They might leave them in their office space, in their desk or something. But if they carry their phone with them in the classroom, they'll be expected to put it in the Yonder pouch as well.
And I think what's important, we included in the policy, building leaders will develop an age-appropriate procedure to be communicated to students and families before the start of the school year. So we're going to make sure everybody's well aware of what's going on in each building before the school year starts.
And just to be, just this is like a wordsmith thing, but what Mr. Dambuski's proposing is a regulation that would be under the policy, not a board policy, just so that it's not, this isn't a board policy, it's
a building procedure.
building
Building
procedures.
Very good.
Right.
And that allows Mr. Dambuski and the building principal to have flexibility to change without having to go back to a board
Right,
policy
and
change.
the board then isn't also overstepping
That-
and telling Mr.
so-
Dambuski how students should use their phones in school. Right.
I actually had a follow-up question to Alex's, because I was going to wait until we did the first read of the policy, because I see there's a regulation listed in the policy, but that regulation, is that been drafted? Does that exist currently?
So that regulation is in very, very rough draft form with Yonder. That regulation will be finalized once we complete the onboarding process with Yonder, and then that will be the one that's cross-referenced in the policy.
And then my question is all kind of also for Jack. In the past, since I've been in policy committee, this is not substantive, this is just form. The regulations, the Rs that we've had listed, they were board policies, not building policies. So why are we saying Regulation 5695R, is that potentially confusing to people since we do have board policies that are noted as regulations? Why could we not write, instead of writing that by individual building guidelines instead?
Well, the answer is, the reference should be to the fact that there are regulations, whether it should be with the board delegation policy number at an R
Right,
is something that I don't think the committee really decided yet.
okay.
But I do think that we need to see the regulations. The committee would certainly want to see the regulations. And at that point, you can decide. But likely, from what the discussion is, no, they wouldn't be part of a board regulation. They would be a building regulation, and the reference in the policy would be to the fact that they were a building regulation.
So I guess I was gonna recommend when we did the first read, just that change, which would be instead of writing, unless expressly permitted, and I would change, instead of using regulation 5695R, I would ask that it be by the individual building guidelines instead, unless expressly permitted.
That probably makes sense for another reason, and that is because if they want to have discretion in the building, it wouldn't have to come back to
That's
the
right.
committee, to the
Right.
board.
That's why.
To edit them and go through 2 reads. So
That's
I would
right.
agree, yes,
Right,
that's probably the
it will
way to do
hold up the process significantly to have it tied so significantly to the policy, right? Yeah.
And then, I have.
Just
and
two,
then
two more questions, unless you're done.
It wasn't related to that, so you can
Okay.
go ahead.
So if they put a dummy phone in the Yonder pack, they never open it, they're not destroying school property, but they have their phone, what are the consequences?
So if they're caught with a phone when they have trying to pass off either an old phone or a parent's old phone, that phone will be confiscated, brought to the main office, and the parent will be required to come pick it up.
And if that happens again, it's just,
Well, progressive
Ground up.
discipline, right? So progressive discipline, if it happens twice, the consequence becomes more severe. So maybe perhaps that's accompanying an in-school suspension as well as parents coming to pick it up.
so these consequences will be clearly stipulated when the policy's announced.
Yeah, so
Not going to be a policy, though.
I'm
Just
sorry.
careful.
when
Okay.
The procedures.
When the
Right.
procedure, when the
Sorry, Mark.
procedures are finalized, they will all be governed by our code of conduct, which outlines what the potential scope of consequences for any disciplinary infraction could be.
All right, last point, question. So one of the concerns why people might be opposed to this is they want to be able to reach their kids. What is the school going to do to facilitate that process, given we're going to now lock phones up?
So we have over 100 phones in the building that dial out. If a parent needs to get in touch with their child, they can contact the main office, the assistant principals, they can contact the school counselor, and we will be able to very quickly get the information to that child. If it's something that the parent wishes to communicate directly, we can say, come down to the office at the end of the period, and you can call. We'll give them a private space to be able to utilize a phone where they can call their parents.
And the school won't be overwhelmed with inbound calls now that never existed before?
I mean, overwhelmed, I guess that's a matter of perspective. I don't know. I mean, our phones ring all day anyway.
Okay,
But again, there's no shortage of offices that can be contacted.
very good.
I'd be interested to see the level of the pile of sports equipment in front of the building, and if it
I hope it goes
continues
down,
to
yes.
dwindle. Oh, lunch delivery service,
deli-
yeah, all of that, yeah. Yeah, that'll be interesting data
And
as
remem-
well.
this
Yeah.
worked 15 years ago and before. That's how everything happened. And as Mr. Dombrowski said correctly, those 3 minutes at the end of the day were for sports changes, and it worked out. And it
Yeah.
was successful.
Very good. Thank you.
We can put a payphone back in the lobby.
Well, we can't get anyone
still
to
have
fix
one. We
it.
still have
There's
one.
a
That's
payphone
right.
in the
Yeah.
hall.
But they don't work right.
I don't
No
think-
one
I don't
can
think they
fix them,
support it
though.
anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, I
If I
love
could
that
just say,
payphone in my high school lobby.
I know Mr. Dombrowski was talking about Yonder pouches for 7 through 12. As far as K through 6, phones, smart wearables will not be allowed in school.
The conversation with the policy committee said K through 12, bell-to-bell restriction. The Yonder pouches I'm speaking about, practice that we will employ at the high school. That is obviously the building they spend their longest amount of time in the district. It also has the largest student body. So the approach that we're taking is utilization of the Yonder pouches.
And they're currently not
Then-
allowed out. I know, like,
Correct.
my last one just graduated Lloyd Harbor, but that was it. Like, if I didn't make 8:30 for Uparu, like, that was it. You weren't going home with anyone else. See ya when you get off the bus. And
Right,
that's the
that's-
end of the story,
That's
right?
correct now,
Yeah, it
correct.
was sort
Yeah,
of
They don't
there's
use
no
it, right.
need.
right.
There's no
End
need.
of discussion. Yeah.
You're talking about elementary school?
Yeah.
at elementary school.
So in elementary school, they can't wear there's no smartwatches too, is that correct?
My understanding is that's already the building
Yes.
policies at Goose Hill, West Side, and Lloyd Harbor. So that, I don't believe there's an intention of changing that. They're not, they
Okay.
the principals they're here tonight, they could speak to it
I
if it's
could tell you,
different than what I'm saying.
I watched at West Side's graduation rehearsal, and there was only one child even wearing a watch. It was a sixth grader this year. They
And it
didn't
was
know
like
why
a
I was there.
regular watch?
It
or-
was. It looked like a regular
Okay,
watch.
yeah.
That's all I could see.
Okay, well,
Okay, good.
the cell phones don't work there at West Side anyway,
Right.
so
That's
we-
one of the pluses of cell phones not working at West Side. That is correct. And the back of
Brag
Goose
too
Hill, so
much.
we're safe with the kindergartners.
Okay.
Um,
And then just my other question is, and maybe this is too in the weeds for this, but you're already talking to Yonder. So what's the budget for this, and where is the funding coming from? And
So there's a couple options with respect to the funding.
Yeah.
What we are looking at price-wise roughly comes in, give or take, either side, just side of $30,000. One of the ways that as we prepared our building budget back in really January, right? December, January, February. One of the ways that I had kind of in the back of my mind planned is we budget every year for flex furniture for classrooms. And if I have to put a flex furniture order on hold for a year to be able to do this, that's how I would look to do it. We have, there has been no shortage of ideas bounced around about ways to kind of supplement some of this. One of the questions we asked Yonder when we first started the conversation is what's the shelf life of these? Is this
Yeah.
something we're going to have to purchase? And they are very durable products that are designed to be cleaned easily. Simple wipes can clean them. So they said if they're cared for properly, they could last upwards of 8 to 10 years.
Right, so the plan is to give each child their own
Their own-
dedicated
their own
Yes.
dedicated.
Yonder, that they can clean on their own and.
okay.
I do want to.
You need lots of Clorox.
Political.
I know the Yonder pouch makes my skin crawl a little bit, but I understand the
Well,
purpose.
if it makes
Just the
if it makes you feel any better,
yeah.
one of the schools I spoke to, the kids turn them back in at the end of the day,
Oh.
and when they come in the next day, they just grab one out of the
Yeah.
bucket.
No, we
No,
don't want
no,
that.
no.
So,
No, and I ride the subway every day,
There
but
you go.
that's something really, yeah, okay.
I do want to add, at the elementary level, it's not just smartwatches. We had some students coming with watches that can record video or sound. So we've had presentations to parents about the dangers of that also, and many realize that they don't even sometimes realize what they're purchasing. These could be watches that is inexpensive of $20 that are able to do this. So we're continuing to do that education with the parents. All this comes with lots of education, make sure everyone understands the importance of what we're doing here.
Just were bins looked at as an option versus Yonder packs, and they can't get lost, and kids, I think some programs use bins.
Yeah, my school, we use just like a giant, it's a much smaller
we
school though.
we did look
Giant.
at that. We looked at
Tupperware.
lockable cabinets for the classroom. We currently have kind of those calculator holders that were repurposed to be cell phone holders. Each one of those has a pro in terms of its ease of use and its visibility. The locking cabinet, would be a little bit time intrusive. But really, part of the main reason that I because when I originally started working on this, that was where mine was going, was like locking cabinets where the teacher, the kids can see the phone in the locked cabinet, but they can't access it. But one of the things we're trying to really help them foster is an ability to develop that delayed gratification. And if we're still giving them the phone back at the end of the period, it's 4 minutes between periods where they're going to be glued to their phone, where they're going to be walking in the hallway on their phone. So part of the reason why my mentality shifted towards the Yonder pouch was to help them learn some of that delayed gratification.
Now, I was thinking, though, a bin in the morning and then get it there, not in and out, because
So-
that would be a problem.
So we did look at that. Obviously, if we're talking, this year we had 737 students in the building. I believe we had one 7th grade student without a phone. So if we're talking about 737 students in the building, that's roughly $1 million worth of devices that we're going to be assuming responsibility for. And if we're just putting them in large bins, there's a risk of damage to the phones. There's also the supervision of where we're going to store them, and then the logistics of returning them at the end of the day.
Very good.
Right, I think all our phones, well, except for Heather's has a black case on it, they all look exactly the same. It would be it would be a 2-hour endeavor at the end of every day to do. So, and I know Dan and his team have still a lot of details to work out. There's a lot here. And we really appreciate the feedback from the parents. There were some things that I didn't take into account. A couple commented that child has work, and that's the senior. So they may need that communication as a shift change or something along those lines. So I really appreciate the feedback from the parents. And you could tell by their comments, they really thought about it. And many of the parents who did not feel that were in that minority of 10, 11% now wanted that, they were of older students, and the reason was the work or something along those lines. So I think they're in favor of doing something, but they had some legitimate reasons, and Dan and his team is working on those right now.
And I think that you had Mr. Danbuski, you had an excellent point during our policy committee meeting. You know, if a child does need to call their parent, you know, check their phone for a work schedule, they need to go in and speak with someone, they need to advocate for themselves. And, you know, I thought
That's
that was
another important life skill.
excellent. Yeah,
Yes.
Great, thank you. And
thank you so much.
Thank you.
we
Yes.
have some moms in the audience too, who I know put a lot of work into this also. So I just want to recognize that our community is pretty amazing, and we all look out for each other. So thank you.
Very much so.
Thanks. Okay, so it's now our first audience to visitors. The Cold Spring Harbor Board of Education and Administration welcomes your attendance at Board of Education meetings. Audience to the public affords residents an opportunity to address the Board of Education on both agenda and non-agenda items. Each resident is allowed to speak for 3 minutes. This is not the forum to discuss student or staff specific issues. Please contact the district separately on these matters.
Anyone?
Bueller?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We are now going to move to approval of minutes. We will vote separately on each minute approval. June 11th, minutes. Mark, absent.
So Mark, you
Mark
want to
was-
abstain.
What? Mark,
Mark, you
please
wanna
abstain. You were not yet on the board. May I have a first? Lisa, second. Heather, any questions? All in favor? June 27th. Heather, Bruce.
This has to be a table, Alec. You
Oh,
don't have a
table it.
you-
Sorry, that's why it's in blue. I see that. Okay, we will table that. May I move on now to July 1st? Heather?
Take a motion to table,
May I have a motion to table June 27th minutes? May I have a first? Lisa. Second? Kate? Any questions? All in favor?
Okay, table.
Thank you. And that's just, we didn't have enough people, is that right?
You don't have
Yeah,
enough
okay.
people to
We don't have
vote on
people
that
vote on that, okay. July 1st minutes. Heather and Bruce were absent. May I have a first on the minutes? Lisa, second. Kate or Mark? All right, Kate, thank you.
And you could
Any
vote- you were there,
questions?
and you would vote
All
on
in
this one,
favor?
the four of you.
Thank you.
Oh, great.
Okay, so we did personnel recommendations. And we are now going to move to business recommendations. So we'll take all donations, health service contracts, claims, audit reports, and additional business matters on pages 13 to 17 as a slate. May I have a first? Kate. May I have a second? Mark. Questions? Yes, Lisa.
I just have a quick question about number 9 on additional business matters, district-wide school safety plan, revised. This is
15.
page 15.
Page 15, yeah.
Just going through the safety plan, I'm assuming everything highlighted were the changes?
Yes, those are some items that we changed, yes. And what happens is you're going to approve it today, but it's required, is required to be on you're going to have a public hearing at your next meeting and adopt the school safety plan. This is the revisions to the plan.
Okay, I was noticing that on page 21, the appendices, it's number 13, Roman numeral 13.
Hang on 1 second. Page 21, you said?
Appendices.
I just don't have it in front of me.
Item
Okay.
13. So the actual appendices that are included don't match the appendices that are listed.
Okay, so we'll make sure we revise that before
Yeah.
the hearing next time.
Yes,
And we'll get,
please.
and after tonight's meeting, it goes up on the website.
Great.
So we'll make sure it's
Thanks,
up on the
Lisa.
website with the right appendices. Thank you.
Sure.
Good catch.
Thank you.
Well
Someone
done.
reads their stuff.
Wow.
Thank you, Lisa.
Good, all right. Appendices, I love it. It's so good.
There's
Okay.
interesting stuff.
Yeah,
in the
good. Yeah, yeah,
appendices.
good, yeah. Any other questions?
So these are contracts for this school year,
Yes.
the whole year. Can they be terminated?
All contracts have a clause for termination.
Or what?
All contracts have a clause for termination.
Are they all
With a
different?
it can be different depending on, most of them are 30 days,
Okay,
as a general rule.
all right, if that's the case.
Just make sure you're talking in the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you. I know people can hear you, but then if you listen to the board meetings, which I love to do, you can't hear what everyone said. All right.
All right, just so, I asked if the contracts can be terminated? No, just so they hear it.
Thanks, Mark.
And I was told, in most cases, or all cases, 30
All
days?
contracts have termination clauses that we built into them. They all go through our attorneys, Fraser Feldman, and for the most part, the termination clauses are 30 days on each contract. Some are a
Perfect.
little different. but-
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for the clarification.
All in favor?
Any other questions? Oh, I have to walk on, thank you, it's for this?
Whenever you do it, but I just don't want you to.
But I do all in favor on this one, I think, first, right? All in favor, business recommendations, okay. So I have here, I may as well do this now, right? A walk-on,
Bless you.
God bless you. Number 17
number 17.
for your.
Thank you. May I have a motion? I have to take a motion to walk it on, is that right?
I don't think you need to add it, I think you need a motion.
I'll read it and then I'll take a
Yeah,
motion.
first and a second.
All right, so be it hereby resolved that the Board of Education of the Cold Spring Harbor Central School District approves the terms of a stipulation of settlement with the employee named in confidential attachment A, and be it resolved that the board president is authorized to sign the stipulation on the board's behalf. So this first one we vote on and I wait on the next
You
one.
need a motion.
May I have a motion?
A motion and a second.
First, Lisa, second. Heather, all in favor? Thank you. All right, be it hereby resolved that the Board of Education of the Cold Spring Harbor Central School District accepts the resignation of the employee named in confidential attachment B. May I have a first? Lisa, second. Kate, all in favor? Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Jack. Okay. We now move to special education reports. We will take the CSE, CPSE approvals and contracts on pages 17 and 18 as a slate. May I have a first? Kate, may I have a second? Mark, any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Other matters. We move to other matters. We will take disposals, overnight field trip requests for our girls' basketball team, and textbook adoptions on page 18 as a slate. May I have a first? Lisa, second. Heather, questions?
I had a question. For number 2, the disposal of the obsolete textbooks, I saw that they were economics textbooks. I was just wondering what would be used in place of those.
Jen?
So these books that we would be disposing have not been used for over 10 years. They're 19 years old, and the teachers have been, so there are 2 different courses for economics. One is the non-AP version. They have been using their own created materials through curriculum writing. And then for AP economics, it's in our scope and sequence documents that I know you've all been studying. It does list the textbook that we're using, which is a 2015 edition. But the books that we are looking to deem as obsolete are taking up space in storage. They haven't been used in over 10 years.
So we're not getting books to replace that we have?
Correct.
Heather,
Correct.
I use this edition when I taught economics. in the
Are you
building.
saying
I
I
use
use
it.
this
This is one of the
edition?
books I use, so that's how old it is.
Right. I asked you about it today, and you were like, "Oh, I know what that
I know,
is."
right?
Yeah.
We use Econo and Proof AP Echo, which you use also, but
It's probably your book, Heather. Can you get Heather her book?
Can I have my book back?
we could see if she wrote in the book. We could.
She didn't write in the book.
No, Heather didn't write in that book. All right. All right. So all in favor?
Great.
Thank you. All right. So we now move to the first reading of policy 5695, student and personal electronic devices. We are voting to waive on a full reading of this policy. We just discussed it extensively. Is there a first? Lisa, a second. Kate, any questions? All in favor? Thank you. At our next meeting, we plan to have a second reading of this policy when we will then vote on adoption of the policy. The agenda includes financial reports on page 18. These reports,
Alex, I'm sorry. I thought you were just voting on waiving the first read, and then we were going to vote on it
did
again.
we not do all in favor?
We did all in favor of waiving.
Waiving it.
reading.
Yeah, it says the next meeting, we will plan to have a second reading of the policy
Okay.
for adoption.
I just wanted, I thought there was another one where we discussed the policy. I just wanted to make sure we had the right language. And then by changing it to this new language to ensure we could do a second read, like with this language.
Yes.
And not delay
Yes,
it.
yeah.
Okay,
You can remove that C regulation 5695R with
okay.
building procedure, and then your second reading
Oh,
adopted.
and in the second reading, we'll go forward.
The
Yes,
second reading is
absolutely. It's
okay.
a minor
I just
change.
wanted to make
Thank
sure
you.
the
Thank you
change
for the
was made and we would
clarification.
go
Yes.
forward with
And I
the
have that
second
language,
reading.
and we could just make sure.
We'll make the
after we
change
know
before
the
exactly what
second.
it is we agree.
Perfect.
Good.
That's it.
That was great. Thank you. Thanks, Heather. All right. This agenda includes, did I read this already? Financial reports on page 18. These reports are for informational purposes. No vote is necessary. If needed, Ms. Costa will answer any questions from the Board of Education and Public. Feel free to call her in her office. We will now continue with our second audience to visitors. Anyone? Okay.
Great.
We will now move to adjourn the meeting. May I have a first? Lisa. Oh, yes. We're adjourning the public meeting. Sorry to say, board members. May I have a second? Yes, all in favor. Thank you. May I have a motion to move back into executive session? Sorry, Kate. For the purposes of personnel and legal matters? Yes, okay, first, Lisa. Second, Mark. All in favor. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.